I knew I needed to change, and I knew I needed to correct myself. I knew I needed to correct my behavior. I knew I needed to be honest with myself. And one of the things that I had to do is I had to forgive myself. Like, I had to forgive me for losing so much money. I had to forgive me for making all the bad decisions. I had to forgive me for letting down all the people in my life. I had to forgive me and be honest with the mistakes that I had made.
Welcome to the Dwayne Kerrigan podcast, and I'm your host, Dwayne Kerrigan. With 35 years in business and close to 30 ventures across 12 industries, I've seen a lot. Amid the celebrity allure of entrepreneurship, many exceptional entrepreneurs remain shadowed. Here, I team up with these hidden talents to unveil their challenges and successes. Dive in with me to unearth entrepreneurial gems, learn from our experiences, and get educated. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you didn't catch the first part of this episode, go back to last week, take a listen. Here's the second piece. We hope that you guys are getting everything that you need out of these conversations. We appreciate you tuning in and listening and sharing and subscribing and all that kind of stuff. Thanks so much, guys. Have an amazing day and week, and we will chat with you soon. Enjoy.
Every day, I fought for what the next thing I had to do and what was the next step that I needed to take to try to create the plan, right, of how to get out of my mess. And the second part of that was Morocco, and we all went to Morocco. And if you remember, I was sitting in the van, and I was the first one to go in the trip. And we're all sitting in the van, and we're driving, and we're doing the thing. And
by first way to go, just so I can explain to your listeners, by first person to go is like we all take turns and we recap, you know, what's going on in our personal life, what's going on in our business life, what's going on in our relationships. And so we all have to take a turn and, you know, explain how is 2025, what's happening in 2026 or whatever, the past year, the year ahead. Sorry. So just want to frame that.
So, and then what we do is, you know, during these trips, everybody gets their, 3 or 4 hours. I can't remember what we get, like 4 hours. And we work on that one person for that period of time, for those 4 hours. And so when we lock ourselves in a house, we're inside the house, everybody gets their time. It's a very set schedule, and that's what we do. Well, in this particular trip, we locked ourselves in a van, and we took a 3-day van trip across Morocco into the Sahara Desert. And anyways, as a part of that, I'm the first one to go, right? And for me, what it was is I'll go first. It'll be fast. I can be done. I don't really have to tell the truth, and I'll just fluff it over, and then I can enjoy the trip. Well, that's not what happened. I didn't even have a notebook. I wasn't even taking notes. And I just told my story, blah, 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 blah. And I got a thing and a deal, done. Of course, my brothers weren't having that. They were just like, okay, no, that's not how this is going to fly. And they had to kind of get into me a little bit. And I need a little bit of straightening up.
A little bit. That's an understatement.
And then one of the things was, and you were the one that said it, right? You're like, Mike, you think you ought to get a fucking piece of paper and write some goddamn notes down?
Sounds like something I would say.
And I was like, and you said, stop the van. And we pulled over on the side of the road, and I went into the back, and I got out my piece of paper, and I started writing my notes, and we just started working on all the stuff and what it was. And you guys, called me to the carpet and what I needed to do to be able to get out of my funk and to kind of keep going and build what was going to be the next plan.
Yeah. I think we actually said, if you don't go and get a notepad, you're like, nah, I'm good at, I'll remember it or whatever. And then we was like, if you don't get the hell out of this truck, a van, and get your notepad, we're going to throw you out and you can hitchhike back to wherever we're in the middle of the
We were
freaking
yeah.
desert. Like,
Yeah.
and we were going to, I think
and
we were, I think we might've left you.
Yeah. And,
It was tough love.
it was, and it was exactly what I needed. And one of the things that came out of that, because I had to sit and we had some quiet time and I had to write some things down. And I had to do some self-reflection and some of that kind of stuff. And I got to a point, and it became really, really emotional for me. I knew I needed to change, and I knew I needed to correct myself. I knew I needed to correct my behavior. I knew I needed to be honest with myself. And one of the things that I had to do is I had to forgive myself. Like, I had to forgive me for losing so much money. I had to forgive me for making all the bad decisions. I had to forgive me for letting down all the people in my life. I had to forgive me and be honest with the mistakes that I had made. And we got to the top of the highest mountain, wherever that was, at the highest mountain in Morocco. And we stopped. And I got out of the van, and one of my brothers was standing there. Kurt, he was standing there. And I called him over, and he looked at me just dead straight in the eye, and I looked at him dead straight in the eye. And I needed to just get out my frustration, and I needed to just get out my pain, and I needed somebody to take that out on him. And I turned around and I punched him, boom, right in the chest. And he went flying back. I don't know if you remember this.
I did. I wasn't there when that happened.
You were over on the side.
Yeah.
And I punched him in the chest, boom. And he turned around and he punched me in the chest, boom. And I turned around and I punched him in the chest, and he punched me in the chest. And the poor dude, there was a little vendor on the side, and he thinks we're getting into this fight. He stands up and starts yelling. And then I grabbed onto him, and he grabbed onto me, and I cried and cried and cried. And it was at that second that I decided, I made that decision, right? That I was going to forgive myself, and I was going to rebuild, and I was going to do whatever it took. And I was going to get out of that. I was going to get out of that rut, and that I was going to figure out what I needed to do to be able to get back, to climb out of that hole, to climb out of my depression in my life, and start building a plan. So I built the 3 P's, right? The plan, persistence, and the biggest one was patience. And I built a plan. And every single day I'd get up, like, and I take this back to Keith Cunningham, right? He was like, okay, every day we're going to kick the can. For those of us back in our day, right, the game was kick the can, and we took a tin can and put it on the ground, right, and you'd kick it. And some days the can would go 2 inches in front of you, and some days it'd go 3 feet to the right side, and some days it'd go 3 feet to the left side, and it never went straight, right? But every single day you'd kick the can, and by the time you got done at, the end of the week, you kicked it down the block. So every day it was just kick the can, kick the can, kick the can. And some days I got lots of things done, and some days I didn't. Some days I got very little done. But every day I'd kick the can, and I had my plan. And it was just about being patient, because it took 14 or 15 months of kicking the can every day to get it all back around. And it just the way it happened, and just the way the universe works, God works. It all came together at the same week. Everything that I'd been working on, that I'd been trying to do for a year and a half, that I wanted right now, never came. And then finally, a week before Thanksgiving, it turned around, and we got got a bunch of money, and I paid off, all the debt that I had. I got back to zero. So now I'm zero.
Come back king. Well, you're not back to zero. You're not necessarily at zero, because right. You got cash flow now, right. And whatnot. Now
I'll have some cash flow.
But so I want to go back to a couple of things.
Yeah.
A couple of key pieces here is one, in that moment, I think when we were in the van and we really applied immense amount of pressure. I'll use the word immense because it
Right.
was immense. For you to get your notebook, that was like, first of all, forcing or telling somebody what to do is overdone typically in the world, but there are times when it is required.
Yeah.
And when it's required, you A, have to have the leverage, and B, the person has to be ready to shift. And we felt,
sure,
we've been together for 15 years. So
yeah.
I want to frame this for the listener,
right.
that, and this is what I wanted to really draw on, is when the timing is right and the leverage is appropriate and you apply an immense amount of pressure, two things are going to happen. The people who are either not ready or weak will fall, crumble, retreat. And the people who have strength, have the fortitude and the courage to move forward will step up. And what you did in that moment was you stepped up.
Yeah.
And we knew that that's what you needed.
Sure. You had seen the 10 years of my demise.
Yeah. But these things happen in a moment, right? Like, it's like decision happens in a moment where we ponder, or we fester, or we sit on something for a long period of time, or we work on something or whatever. And then it seems like in one moment things happen. And in that moment, Mike's choice to just step up and move forward, which is, you have tremendous amount of courage just in who you are. And I have so much respect for who you are. I wanted to make sure that I recircled back to know that, like, Mike didn't make that choice because he was forced or he was made out of weakness. It was actually made out of strength. Sure. and courage to move forward.
Well, and again, one of the key pieces to that was having the right people around me. It was having my brothers, and it was them not letting me settle. It was them not letting me slide. It was them not letting me tell myself a story. It was them loving me enough to say, we're not going to leave you behind. And that, again, is another piece, right? Is to find that support system for you that you need, whatever that is. We're lucky enough to have what we have, and we're truly blessed because we're probably some of the only ones in the world that have it.
Yeah. Well, I think, the big point to that is like we're not meant to walk through this world alone. Humanity is not meant to walk through this world alone. If you feel like you're walking through something alone, that is your choice, because there's people out there that love you, that will help you, will support you. But sometimes you have to ask for it. And to your point about being honest.
Yeah.
Is like, that is a key piece. Like, when you look at the history of the world, we have moved in tribes. The entire history of humanity, we have moved in tribes.
Yeah.
And the purpose is because some people in the tribe had certain strengths and others had different strengths and weaknesses. And we use those to help ourselves survive. And back then it was a matter of survival. But we still need that today. And I think it's missed in a majority of most people's lives. And then, unfortunately, this is, you could argue this statement, and it's not a global belief or anything, but oftentimes what happens is we get into the wrong support groups.
Sure.
That on, whether it's on social media or whatever, wherever it is, and they enable, our thinking, because we look to find what is similar or the same, right, so that we can feel like we fit in. But what in fact we actually need is difference, because difference gives us a perspective that we don't have. And so just going out and finding 5 other people that are exactly the same as you or think the same as you is actually not growth.
Yeah.
That's keeping you down and keeping you where you are. And so, we've never talked about this on the podcast, but you kicked the door open. So I just wanted to make that comment for the listener that, who do you have in your life that is different, that gives you that perspective? And what is the team or the tribe that you need in your life that's going to serve you most, not make you feel good?
Yeah.
So that, I mean,
and that's both in business, and that's both in, your personal life, and that's in business. I mean, and they've always said, you're going to hang around with drug dealers, you're going to be a drug dealer. So, you have to up your expectations to be where you want to go and not settle where you're at. 100%. And you got to pick the right people to hang around with.
So I'd love to talk about, the forgiveness. Love to see what your opinion. I mean, I'm a big believer in forgiveness. I've had to do a lot of that self-reflection.
Yeah.
But what did it mean for you? What was the process?
I just had to let that guilt go. I just had to let that disappointment go that I felt like I had given to other people. Like they were counting on me, and I did the wrong thing and burned through a lot of money and lost it all. And I just let them all down. I let my wife down. I let my family down.
I get
some partners down.
That's all the stuff that, you haunting yourself with, if I will, I don't, sure. Whatever your words are, but what allowed you, like, was there a process, or what went through your mind when all of a sudden it was like, okay, I got to forgive myself for this? And then, what did that look like going forward, like through it and going forward?
Well, again, for me, it was getting to that low point and knowing that I had to let it go, and recognizing that I needed to do that. But that's kind of why when we got to the top of that mountain, it was so beautiful. And I was standing there, and, and Kurt was there. Of course, both Kurt and I were in the Navy together. So we kind of had that kinship of being, shipmates, as we call it. I needed the strength of somebody that I could say beat up on. I needed that male energy, that I could release my male energy and know that I was in a safe space. And so I could do that, and I could hit him and he could hit me, knowing that I could take it, and we could share in that moment of release. And it was that back and forth of that physical state that we were in. And then I was thinking about it, and I said something to him, and I can't remember what I said, but I think I said, when I hugged him, I said, "Do you forgive me?" And I don't know, I think that's what I said. And I don't know if I just needed somebody to tell me, "Yep, it's okay. Like, you're good." Like I said, we, just hugged him, and I cried. And then I just went to the edge, because we were on top of that mountain. I just went to the edge of the top of that mountain, and I just kind of put my arms back, and I just looked at that vast openness. And then I just decided, I was like, no more, I'm done. It's over. From that point, it was like, okay, let's go.
The realizations afterwards, like, were they, cause there's a moment, right, where we choose or we decide. And I mean, there's moments where we know ahead of time. It's like, right. I know, I intellectually know, I know. But it's like, there's a moment where we get it in our physiology, in our body, and we embody it. But then there's the post, like, reflection time, where it's like, yeah, man, I can't believe, like, I got so stuck on that. Or, like, what did that, was there some of that for you? And if so, what did it look like, where you were like, yeah, shit, that didn't even fucking matter? Like,
for me, I didn't have a whole lot of that. For me, it was like, okay, what's next? Like, what's forward? For me, it was like that, cutting that clean break and saying, okay, well, the past is the past. The past doesn't equal the future. And here's what it is now. And one of the things that I wrote down in my book, and I haven't done it, I haven't had time to do it yet, but and I really do want to, and I probably need to ask permission, but I want to write a book about the Badgers and how important we are and how important it's been and our journey has been, because we have gone through so many variations of who we are and our growth, and where we started, and we were all driven and ego and hungry and build, and now we've been there 15 years, and everybody has kind of gotten to a new point in their life and a new chapter in their life of where we're at. But through it all, we have all been there in all the glory and all the pain and all the suffering, and we've all had it. We've gone through those points where we weren't good in our relationship, we weren't good in our business, we weren't good in our physical body, or our health, and we've all had to learn from each other, and we've all had to lean on each other, and we've all had to take care of each other. I know specifically for me, it has been always life changing, because I always come away from every call and I go, ah, yeah, I need to remember, I need more of this, or I need less of this, or I really need to work on X or Y or whatever, and we do our calls every 6 weeks, and every 6 weeks we have our phone call, and we've done it now for 15 years, and it's been amazing. But again, for me, it was all about moving forward and what plans that I need to start working to put in place to get to the next step.
So what, and that was one of my other areas that I wanted to chat about, was that walking that path forward. Like, what's it look like? Grappling with coming from, this point where you consider suicide, and ultimately going, but which I love what you talked about earlier, which was like, coming from that place where you're considering that, which means you have a perspective of a limited, compelling future.
Right.
But then you see this video called Checkmate that we will post in the show notes, and that the king has one more move, and you get from that really bottom place. Next step is forgive yourself, which I think is, I'm just paraphrasing. From self-forgiveness, you can move forward. And I think I'm glad you've said this, because I've had the same experience. There's a lot of things that I've had to forgive myself for. And I don't think until that happens, it's like, yeah, you can focus, you can deal with ego, you can meditate, you can do all that stuff. But unless you commit to forgiving yourself, like, it's very hard to love someone fully until you fully love yourself, I believe.
100%.
Then in walking that path forward from self-forgiveness onward,
Yeah.
what is,
Well, a part of that is remembering and letting myself be okay with, and remembering, because you tell yourself so many bad things and so many negative thoughts and all those kinds of things, right? Remembering how great I am, like the things you've done, the things you've built, where you've come from, going back and remembering, God, how great I was at what I did and what my strengths were, right? And and part of all of that then became the actual plan. And one of the most important things, again, that my brothers, made me do, that I didn't want to do, was write it down. And I had to go back and write it down. And I have a big whiteboard, and I went to my whiteboard, and I called in a friend of mine who's a good friend of mine locally in Albuquerque, and I brought him in, and he didn't really have any idea what was going on, but I just needed to talk to somebody, because I needed to talk through it, because I needed to put it on the board. And if I talked to somebody, I could write it down. And it didn't matter what it was. It didn't matter what it said. I was just getting it out of me so that he could hear it. And then I would hear it, and I would write it down, and I would just start building. And I just started building this giant plan of all the things that needed to happen, and all the details, and the strategic planning, and steps and times and dates, and, firsts and second and thirds, and, all those kinds of things, to be able to say, okay, look, here's what we can do. Here's what we've got to do to build this, and this is what we have to do to get out of this.
yeah, like as you're saying that, the words that come into my mind. I have two things, one question, and then, but the thing that I hear is build the plan. But at the end of the day, that's like getting resourceful, getting in a resourceful state on your feet with a whiteboard, bringing in a friend, driving it out and doing like just being in a resourceful state.
And being in a resourceful state, right? But for me, I don't do well sitting at a desk and writing it on a piece of paper. It just doesn't work for me. For me, I get on my giant whiteboard and I start drawing and I put them down and it's chicken scratch. Barely read it, right? But it's up there and I know what it is. And then I know, okay, these are all the parts. These are all the steps. There's all the pieces. This is what I got to do. And then from there, I could pick it apart. I could say, okay, let's do this. These are first, second, third, fourth. Here's what we got to do. And I came up with that plan. And then I just started being able to work the plan. And then I got, blessed like I couldn't believe. And I had some people that needed my help. And they came to me and they were like, hey, we want to do this stuff, but we don't know how to do it. And I said, okay, well, that's all I've done. I can do that. And I was able to work a deal with them to have a percentage of profit, which is how I was able to make the money that I could make, because I got a percentage of the profit on the projects. And because they were like, well, we just want to hire you. And I go, you can't hire this. You can't have this knowledge by the hour. You can't afford it. There's too much knowledge and experience. I said, but I'll help you get to where you need to be, but you've got to share it with me.
Right. Okay, before we get to the comeback, I'd like to just, the one question I had was, what would you say to somebody who, because earlier you said kind of like, I remember how great I was or how great I am. What do you say to somebody who's listening that doesn't see that in themselves at this point? How do they access that? How do they harness that? Where'd that begin for you? Like, what advice do you have?
Well, I am extraordinarily grateful that I have done all the Tony Robbins work that I have. So it's a little bit easier for me to be able to get to that part and access it, because I know how to do physiology and I know how to do, mantras and all the other stuff. But, really and truly, it's sitting down and writing down all those things that you're great at and you're amazing at, all those things that you love. We can all find the things we hate. Like if you want to write down a list of hate, write down all the shit that's bad and all the shit that's hate. You can write that list down 10 seconds.
Yeah. And it's endless.
And it's endless.
Yeah.
But write the list that you're good at. Write the list that empowers you. Write the list that brings you love. Write the list that brings you joy. Write the list that, those things that are your assets and you do well, so that you can remember them. And it's a process. It's not 5 minutes. Like, you need to spend an hour. You need to put away your phone, have zero distractions, get into a space where you can do it and start writing, whether it's writing on a chalkboard or a whiteboard, or whether it's writing on a piece of paper, but write. And you cannot leave for a minimum of 45 minutes, no matter what you do, because your brain will go to all the easy stuff first in the first 10 minutes. And then it stops. And then it stops. And then you sit there and you come up with all the stupid stuff, and you just write the stupid stuff down, because it doesn't matter. Just write it down. Write down everything that comes into your brain and write all the stupid stuff down. And then somewhere in a minute, 30, 35, whatever it is, you will come up with brand new thoughts you've never had in your entire life. And you will come up with things that you couldn't have possibly imagined, because your brain has to keep digging, because you don't let it quit. And when it gets to that point, then you come up with some amazing solutions and you go, oh, I never thought about that one. That's a pretty good one. But you have to do that about yourself, because we can all write the bad stuff, but none of us can write the good stuff, because we don't do it.
Yeah, that's epic advice. It really is I would challenge any of the listeners to take that advice right there, and spend an hour, over the first couple of weeks in January here, to really create that list of the things that you're good at, are good about you, the qualities that you have, where you have those qualities, like where they show up, anything that you can think of. You know, I remember being at a course once and they don't know what it was, but they had you write a list of the things that you are challenge you and the things that you're good at. And the challenge list is 2 or 3 times longer
Yeah.
than what you can come up
That's
with.
easy.
But that's an awesome, epic exercise.
Yeah.
So any of you who are in that place where you don't know, what you're great at, create the list.
Yeah.
And if you're even struggling there, then go ask your friends, go ask your people that work with, like go ask your mom, your dad, like
Yeah.
they all see it. They see it.
Well, and tell them, and you want all the good things.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Specifically, hey, tell me all the good things about me.
Yeah.
All the great things that you see in me, because they'll see a million great things that they see in you all the time,
Right.
that you don't see in yourself every time.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Do you mind talking about the depression? Like how long? Because it wasn't a year.
No. So it comes and goes in waves and in levels, right? So I don't know, it was a few years ago or whatever, and I was doing all my VA stuff and I had to do my psych eval test thing and whatever. And so, they came up with major depression moderate or some label, right? Whatever that was. And
Some label.
yeah, whatever. And, the thing at the end of the day is, for a long time, for a couple of years, I had that, but again, it would come in waves and levels. And sometimes it would get really, 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 really bad. Right. And I can say this now, I didn't leverage my brothers as I should have at the time, when there was days that I didn't want to go on. And I needed to talk to somebody, and it was really funny because I didn't want to bother them.
And why?
They're busy. I didn't want to bother them.
But is it about them being busy or you not feeling worthy?
Yeah. Well, and it could have been me not feeling worthy, but I always felt like I was going to be a bother. And the funny part is that any one of them would have got on an airplane and been right next to me in a second. And I didn't, right? And that was my mistake. That I didn't do that, and I didn't do that more. But I was lucky enough to have a lot of Tony stuff and knew how to get myself back into state, knew how to get myself out of the rut, rut, so that I could get myself back into okay land. Not great land, but I was in okay land. I was able to work through that, right? And so for me, knowing how to be able to, change my state, change my position, change what I'm saying to myself, all of those kinds of things, and get me back to an okay spot was fine. The stress of the matter was, every time, you would go back and look at where you were at, you're still in the bottom. So you're always constantly fighting, still being in the bottom, because there was no real compelling future at that point, right? Because it was all still working in the suck. It was in the middle of trying to figure out how to make stuff happen. Those are more the early days. Back then is when it was the hardest piece, because when you're in the bottom, you can't see the top. And that's the hardest part of trying to figure out how to get out of it. And it wasn't until I made the shift and I actually could go in and create the plan and figure that out, that I lived in that space for a long time. But it was always at that point, it was, selling off all the assets. It was closing things up. I was still in the bottom of the slide. Like I hadn't fully hit the bottom of the bottom. I was still in the bottom of the slide. And it wasn't until later that I was able to, get through all of that and kind of move on and then start to build a plan to be able to build. When I would get to that spot that I was in the worst places, I had to make that shift, and I had to, do all the stuff. So I stopped going to the gym. I stopped, doing all that, all the things I should have been doing to take care of myself. One, I couldn't afford it, which isn't true because you don't need to pay for a gym membership. You can go outside and, whatever.
Run hills.
Yeah, run hills, do whatever. I mean, again, you're not thinking clearly. But I can remember the days that were the worst. If I could get my shoes on, and I would walk to a park, and I'd get in the middle of the park, and then I would just scream as loud as I could in the middle of a park, and just try to let it out, and just get it out. And if I could just do that and change my physiology, walk, scream, breathe, right? And then go back and take that breath and then say, okay, what do we need to do today to get through today? Here's what we got to do to get through today. And then you just get through the day. And it's just about the day. You're not worried about anything else. You're about getting through today. And it's just every day. It's just doing the work. It's just kicking the can. It's just, getting through the process. And, my process took, I don't know, 5 or 6 years, 7 years through all of this stuff. But, it was a long time to get through the process. Through the bottom, I think it was probably 18 months or 2 years was when we were at the bottom for the longest period. And then we were able to, make a change, make a shift.
Does the shift, like you talked earlier about, when you were walking the path, just and coming out of it, remembering how great you are, which is, to me, that is a shift in story. Like, we all tell ourselves story. 97% of the problems that I've ever had actually never happened.
No.
I just created them in my mind, made them bigger than they were, and I'm not minimizing, but
Oh, no.
I'm not minimizing, problems and the reality of problems, but, we can shift story. And at somewhere in your process, like, through self-forgiveness, then getting resourceful, like, how does the story or the meaning that you're attaching to these things start to change? And how significant is that as a propellant to move yourself through?
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, first and foremost, you have to change your story because we're all living in a story every day. We're telling some story to ourselves some way, somehow. And so now you've got to be able to go back and tell yourself whatever the new story is going to be, right? And whether it's, again, whether it's right or wrong, whether it's true or not true. If you're living in a shitty story, you're going to say in a shitty story. If you start telling yourself a good story and a compelling story, then you're going to start moving in a good story and a compelling story, right? And so moving in that direction and having those conversations with yourself is part of the process of being able to go, okay, this is how I'm now going to be able to make that shift, right? Because until you get to the point to where you have enough leverage, right, so that you can actually physically to decide that you're going to make whatever shift that is, whether it's going to the gym because you're too fat, whether it's working on your relationship because you don't want to lose your spouse, whether it's, whatever that is, until you get enough leverage that you decide you're not going to change. And when there's enough leverage and you decide to change and you can make the shift, then you make the shift. And now, whatever that ends up being, you have got to now come up with your, new compelling future or your new story or whatever that's going to be for you to lead you to the place that you want to go. But again, a part of that also goes back and falls into where do you want to go? Like you got to figure it out. You got to write it down. One of the things I remembered is in the beginning, God, this was 30 years ago. I used to write down all my goals every year. I'm going to make this much money. I'm going to do this. I'm going to build a company. I'm going to have an 8A company. I'm going to, have this much revenue. I'm going to have this relationship. I'm going to have this stuff, and just sit there and write it down and write it down and write it down. And then I remember, and I found the other day when I had to move and I had to shut the company down and I lost my office and I had to go through it. I found all these old papers, right? And I was like, oh, man, I used to write those goals out all the time. Where am I going to be? What am I going to do this year? What do I want to accomplish? What do I want to be in my relationship? What do I want to do? And then I remembered that I stopped. Somewhere along the way, I stopped. I stopped doing that, right? I stopped reaching for the stars.
Probably when you hit about 25 million.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah.
And I went through and I stopped doing that. I stopped writing it down. I stopped putting it out there in the universe. I stopped having goals that were obtainable and reachable, and not even obtainable and reachable. Maybe they're unobtainable and unreachable. It doesn't matter. Like, where am I going and what direction am I going in and what do I want? What do I want in my life and my relationship and my health and all that kind of stuff that I stopped. And I just stopped. And I made that distinction probably about, it was probably about 4 months ago or 5 months ago, because I had to move. And maybe it's a little longer than that. Maybe it was a year ago. And I had to move, and I had to move out of my office because I was trying to rent my building. And so I think that was an important one. I think not having those down on paper and not having, vision board or, whatever you want to call it. I think not having those was a big obstacle. Wasn't helping me.
So did you write new goals, just out of curiosity?
Yeah. So the funny part is last year I wrote my goals when I started going through to rebuild all the stuff, and I wrote down 600,000.
Really?
That's what I made.
600,000 in the last year, and that's
that
what
I needed to make this year.
And that's what you made, and
That's
you
right.
made that,
And I
and
made
got
that.
out of debt.
I made that, got out of debt.
When did, sorry, and I remember, I don't, well, sorry, I'm asking the question because I actually don't remember. I know you reached out to us and let us know, like, hey, I've cleaned up all my debt. This is like, but that was only a couple months ago, right?
It was a week before Thanksgiving.
A week before Thanksgiving. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it was the week before Thanksgiving. And I had been working on it. And it should have been closed, and the deal should have been done, and they should have finished and all the stuff, and they didn't. And there was always a thing, and it always got pushed back, and this thing and that thing. And I just kept working and trudging and working and trudging and working and trudging. And I thought one would come first, and then the second one, and then the third one, because I had like 3 different projects going on. And they all came the same week. It was the weirdest thing. And it showed up.
Fuck yeah, bro.
And then I had personal friends that, lent me $250,000 and saved me from bankruptcy. If he wouldn't have done that, I would have had to go bankrupt. I promised him I'd pay him back in 3 to 6 months, and it took me 3 years to pay him back. And he never asked me for a dime.
How good did that feel, giving him back that money?
Yeah, oh my God, that's the whole thing, man. It was good, but I got that off my plate. And it's funny because he owned a construction company, and he did a bunch of dirt work, and we have a big project going on in Albuquerque, a big highway construction job, and he's on it. And every day I would drive by and I'd see his trucks. And I'd go, man, I owe this dude. Man, I owe this dude. Man, 2 or 3 times I'd drive through a day. Man, I owe this dude. Man, I owe this dude. Man, I owe this dude. And it bothered me every day. And that was funny because I paid him, and then I turned around and I started driving through, and my brain went back to, man, I owe this dude. Man, I owe this dude. Man, I owe this dude. And I was like, oh, nope, stop. You paid that. You don't owe this dude. But that's that story, the repetition of the story that we play and we play and we play and we play and we play. And then it's one of those things that you just have to catch yourself and say, okay, that's not true. I don't owe this dude. I paid him back. I'm good. Right. I paid back the bonding company. I paid back, all the people. I paid back all that debt that I needed to get out the house. Because I had a hard money loan on a house. So I had borrowed a bunch of money from a dude to buy the house. And so I had this, extraordinary interest rate that I was paying. So I had to get that paid off. I mean, I just had all kind of stuff. And, again, I was super blessed. The opportunities came. I was there to, capitalize on them. I was there to do it. And I did the work. And I got it done and got through it. And I was able to pay all that stuff off. But, and so again, it was funny because I went back and I wrote them down. And one of the things was to, I knew the number. right? And, and I said, well, this is how much I'm going to make. And I think for the whole year, I ended up making like 850,000, right? Because I still had to pay all the daily bills and stuff like that, so.
But you had 600 net
But
left over
I had six in debt,
yeah.
like debt that I had to clear.
So I'm curious, just going back, there's two things. Like one, I love this concept of I just got to get through the day. It reminded me when you said it is like, the alcoholics, kind of, they break it down into small steps. Like I just don't have to have a drink for 1 hour or the day or whatever it is. And it's like that breaks the problem down to a smaller duration. And rather than like 6 months, it's like, oh man, I got to get through the next 6 months or the next year, which makes it seem so big. And then my hallucination is, and I have been fortunate, I've not really gone into, I mean, I was pretty depressed when I was young, very young, because I tanked the business. I was like 18 and I almost committed suicide. But since then I've been, knock on wood, like extremely fortunate with that kind of stuff, like being able to frame the story for myself. But like, as you were talking about that, driving through the, and seeing that guy's truck, your friend's trucks, in his business, and going, oh, I owe that guy. Like there's this, gotta be this, like, especially if you've been in depression, my hallucination is that you tell yourself a pretty, disempowering story, like, whatever it might be. I'm a loser. I'm a this, I'm a that, I'm a blah, 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 all that stuff, which then is what requires the self-forgiveness. But how do you reframe that? Like, say, for example, that where you're like still driving by his trucks going, oh, I owe that guy. And then it's like, oh, no, I don't owe him. And then you drive by again. Oh yeah, I owe that guy. And it's like, how do you reframe? I'm curious, like, what tools you have used or are using currently to kind of reframe the new story. Like, cause now you've paid everything off. You're completely debt free. You've got cash coming in from some investments, but you were burning that cash because of the debt and the interest and all the shit. And now it's like, you've got this now, a runway, if you will, in your future. And how do you unwind the old story and create a new story, or do you even have to unwind it? Like, what are you experiencing?
Well, the funny part is I think I'm still in the middle of trying to figure that out, because I still catch myself.
Let's figure it out. We got time.
I catch myself in the old story, right?
Yeah.
And I go, okay, that's not true. That's not true. The story is, right? And here's the new story, right? The story is, that I am good, that I am great, that I, know business. I know how to take care of business, that I'm worth it, that I'm a good person, that, all of those things that we want to tell ourselves that is in self-doubt, right? To know that those are true, and that, we're going to move forward and we're going to do great things. And it's that constant awareness, because, again, we always revert back to the old story, and then we got to break it until we can embody it. And then when we embody it and then we get it and then it's in us, then we know, okay, then this is whatever the path is and forward and all that kind of stuff. So I am probably still in the middle of doing that, because I'm still catching myself. Like, I still catch myself going back to something that's not necessarily true today. It's not true, because I've done it. I've taken care of it. I've done whatever, but my brain still goes back to the old pattern. So, it's just, I think, and it's just daily work. It's just daily work. One of the things that I've done now, and I shared it, with the group, is my new daily morning mantra. And I do it a couple of times. I start my days now and I do it a couple of times, and I get it into my body and I get it in my physiology, and I say my mantra, and all the things that are in there about, me and being a good dad and a father and a husband, and being courageous and all of those kinds of things. And, I got them all and I put them all down there, and that's what I did.
How much is the rituals? Like, cause I put that into the ritual bucket. Yeah. Like, how have your rituals changed from where you were to where you are now?
Back then, there was no rituals, right? Every day was just getting through the day. Now, part of the rituals is doing that, mantra every day. And then the other part of it is I try to go in and do a meditation every day and clear my mind and try to get it as clean as I can for the day. I have to embody that and get it into my brain to retrain my brain to remember. One of my exercises, I can't remember what it was, and I was writing it all down and I wrote it all down and I got it all on paper. And then I took all that information I put into ChatGPT. I said, write me a morning mantra that is empowering that I can have every morning. And it wrote it. And when it wrote it, I went, shit, that's badass. I like that. I was like,
That's awesome.
That's better than I could have written, right? Because I don't write well. So just a little tidbit, but I mean, it was great because it came up with something that was better than I could have ever come up with, but it was what I needed. And so that's part of what I do, right? And I have it on my phone, and I keep it on my phone, and so I have it with me every day, and then I have it in my mirror, um, and I can say it a couple of times a day, and say it whenever I want to, and it's been an important piece just to remind and retrain my brain that this is all the good things we're doing, and this is what we believe and we stand for, and all that stuff.
Dude, that's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Like it
worked for me. It's working for me.
Yeah. Well, and look, I mean, I personally think that could work for anybody.
Yeah.
And I also think that, it's not going to hurt you.
Oh,
unless your mantra is not
not empowering,
not empowering.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. Dude, it's an amazing conversation. And, actually, I do want to talk to you about, I do want to ask you about the process of, because you had said, you'd made a comment earlier and then I pulled you back into this, but you'd made a comment about the, some people came to you about a project.
Yeah.
And then, you sounded like they wanted to hire you and pay you hourly. And you're like, no, I don't do that. Which a lot of desperate people would be like, okay, like any income, I'll take anything. But well,
in the beginning, what I did is, with a couple of them, is I went in and I said, okay, look, I'll help you and I'll help you, do some stuff. So some of them needed strategic planning. Some of them needed, processes. Some needed, some procedures. Some of them needed just business knowledge, right? Just help with just all kind of stuff. Like they had questions, kind of like being a mentor. And I said, okay. I said, I'll help you. I'll give you this many hours a week for this much money. And so then I started creating a little bit of income that way. But then a couple of them, came to me and they had projects that they didn't normally do and they wanted to go and do, and they needed that knowledge. And that's when I said, yeah, I'm happy to do that for you. But, you can't hire me as a project manager. Like if you want me to do this and you want me to help you do this, I will help you and I will give you that knowledge and I will give you the experience. And in these particular cases, I was helping them do the project management, but I was also helping them make sure it got done in the field and that kind of stuff. And then I said, but I need a percentage and you need to pay me a percentage of profit. And so I did that for a couple of different companies and it came out to, I made them a couple $1 million in profit. I got mine.
And that's what made you your money. Yeah.
That's where I made all of that's where I made the big cash to pay off the big debt. Yeah. And then we had, like I said, I had a little bit of consulting money that was coming in and then the investment money that we had that was just keeping us afloat. But, if you remember, one of the things you guys made me do was to do my own personal P&L. Remember that?
Yeah. I forgot.
And I did my personal P&L, and what was the bottom? It was $42. After all the debt, I had $42 a month to live on, because that's how much interest and debt was being consumed by the money that we did have coming in, and it was all gone every month.
Yeah, and you were making some
Yeah,
you
it
were
was like
making some pretty good money.
$38,000 a month or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So after 38
So
grand, your
I had
interest and debt payments were so big that you had
yeah,
42 bucks
I
left.
had $42 a month or something. Yeah. Yeah. And so again, it was the same thing. It was just, when I got it set and when I started the plan and when I put it all together, again, it was just showing up every day, kicking the can, doing the work, getting through the process, doing whatever it took. I mean, there was lots of days that, they were, 17, 18-hour days to get stuff done. There was lots of days when, I was the guy digging the ditch because I had to go dig the ditch. It was whatever it was to be able to get those things done, to get to the end is whatever it was. And that's what it took. And, I'm lucky from the standpoint that, I was able to do the work and I did the work and I got through it all, and I was able to make the money and able to pay it off. And like everything else, some other things suffered, like I didn't get to go to the gym as much and I didn't get to work out as much. And I've kind of lost a lot of that, but that's going to be one of my goals now in 2026 is to get back on track and get that started and
Get healthy again.
and get healthy again and really concentrate on that and build, the new consulting business and help people and just use my experience to be able to help as many people as I can.
Dude, I do want to like make a point here and like honor you for the psychology shift in being able to, when somebody comes with an opportunity, to be able to, create that psychology shift in the effect where it's like, I am enough, I am worthy, I have information IP in my brain that other people don't have. And if you want a piece of that, you're going to have to give me a percentage of the profit rather than work for an hourly rate. Like a lot of people would have come and sat in that opportunity is like, okay, pay me $200,000 a year. And then after you pay tax, you're 5 or 6 years, well, and live, you're 10 years before you pay off all that debt. And now you're, instead of 58, right? What are you, 56, 57? How old are you?
58.
58.
I'll be 59 this year.
Yeah, I thought you were 58. So instead of being 58, you're 68.
Yeah.
And that changes the whole game. Like it's a decade
Well,
lost.
and so now, getting through that point, and I mean, and this because we've had these conversations in the Badger stuff is, I didn't want to do anything, like nothing. I just wanted to get done, and I had no real desire to be able to go forward after getting through all of this. And then, I was able to do that and build a plan and put it together. And then I got back into, again, hey, I'm really pretty good at what I do. I have a lot of knowledge and a lot of experience in all the stuff that I've done. And I really do want to do that and share it. And I want to help people and I want to build, whatever is next. Like, I don't really know what's next. Right. I think I'll probably go look at buying a couple businesses. I'll go out and help people and consult, and I'll go out and do whatever that is and whatever that needs to comes next. And I'm excited about it now, where before I wasn't.
Yeah.
Now I'm like pumped.
Now you're juiced.
Like now I'm juiced. Now I'm like, man, let's do some shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cause you get your mojo back.
Yeah.
You get your confidence
and you get
back,
your confidence
and you build
back,
on
and,
that.
and you get on back. And then you're like, okay, you know what? Yeah, I'm good. Let's do this. We've taken care of that. We've dug out of the hole. We're back to zero. I started at zero once. Not really zero, right? We still have a few assets and stuff, but cash flow wise, got out of debt. And so now, let's go find the next opportunity and build what's next.
But what I love about what you kind of just said earlier, which was I never heard you say, I want to go make a bunch of dough.
No,
you said, I want to, and that's like subconsciously you're like, I want to go out, I want to serve people, help people. And and look at that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on the podcast is like, I want to launch the year. Like you know, we've got lots of interviews. I could have launched the 2026 with a conversation with a lot of people.
Sure.
But I specifically said to the team, no, I got a guy. I got a brother that is the comeback king. And man, what you've done in the last 12 to 24 months and sit and watch you in the pain and in the rut or in the tunnel, whatever you want to call it, for so long. And, we're all on a path. And, like you said earlier, you said it perfectly. Like, you've got to have your own leverage to create change. And as much as you love somebody and you can see them in pain, they have to choose. But what you can do is you can love and support where they are and, be there for them, to have conversations, to support them, to sometimes give them a kick in the ass and tell them to get out of the van and get the notepad or we're fucking leaving you. I mean, I can't thank you enough for being on the podcast, Mike flew in from New Mexico, from Albuquerque to Florida to have this interview on his own dime because he wanted to do it in person. That's what it meant for him. And I'm so grateful that you had that vision to do that. And I'm appreciative of you spending your own dime to do that, to give, because that's who you are. I can't wait to see what happens in the next 10 years, whatever. It's not about building a successful business or buying a bunch of business. It's just, who you can help and how you share yourself so authentically from the heart. I mean, that's who you've always been, but dude, I mean, I don't know. I got to buy you a t-shirt or a plaque or something that says "Comeback King of 2025," because I don't know. I know a lot of people who have turned it around like you have, and once you made the choice, and it just was a rapid pace and who you've become. And I don't know if you want to even speak to that, if you have thoughts around it, but who you've become as an individual, as a man, in your masculine energy. And this doesn't have to be about masculinity. It can be in the feminine energy too, right? But it's like who you've become through this process is a better version of who you were at your peak, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. No, 100%. I agree. I think that who I've become is absolutely, certainly better than the versions that I've been. But I also think that I've also gone back to the roots of where I started, and more of the drive of what the future can bring, but now with a little more wisdom, now with a little more knowledge, now with a lot more maturity,
And an experience that
and now
you got yourself an experience that a lot of people don't get.
A lot of experience. I've made about every mistake there is, more than once. I hate to say that part, but that's true. Again, I am so grateful to be here. Like, it is beyond words. I now really look forward to seeing what's next, but going in and helping others, and that's still who I am. I mean, I can't change that part. I can't change that. I still want to help. I still want to do those things. Now I'm a little smarter.
Yeah. Well, now you're aware and you can
I'm
build a
aware.
team that's going to protect you from yourself.
That's right. Now
Right? And you can love yourself for all the things you are and all the things you're not.
and all the things I'm not. And I don't have to, and I don't have to beat myself up, and I can go forward and I can build great, amazing, wonderful things and great teams, like I built in the past, build great teams and do great things, right? And do great things. So I am very excited. I am very happy. I am extraordinarily grateful to be given all the gifts that I have been given. And I am extraordinarily grateful to have the opportunities that I've been able to be given and have to be able to get me to where I am today. Because without those, I mean, I couldn't have made it. I mean, there's a lot of hard work that I did, but there's a lot of gratefulness of opportunities that came to me, and they came to me at the right time. I didn't create those; those came to me.
Yeah, but you saw them and you found them.
I
right?
saw them, and I found them, and I capitalized on them.
Yeah.
But I mean,
luck is labor under correct knowledge, right? Like don't discount yourself for that. So
so it was good, but
there are opportunities circulating all the time around all of us,
and there are,
and we just have to see them. There you go.
Got to see them,
dude. Thank you for coming. I love you, brother.
Love you.
I love you, man. Thank you for sharing this.
I hope we help somebody.
And that's what I want to say to the listeners. This episode, you need to share. This is not me trying to promote the podcast. This is me trying to help people. I put Mike on this podcast, not because I knew what he was going to say, but because I know the man he is. And I know that the conversation was going to serve others. And I believe this conversation serves others. So please, you don't know who is hurting. Share this to as many people as you can, because it is an unbelievable conversation about a man who has been to the top of where he wanted to be, down to the bottom, and on his way back out. And those are hard stories to find. And so, man, I appreciate your integrity. I appreciate your vulnerability to share the way you've shared. And this is going to impact people at a level that is, as our friend Kurt says, epic. So,
well, thank you, because I mean, if you're not doing what you're doing and you haven't created and built what you've created and built, then you wouldn't be touching these people's lives. So, I mean, it is, again, epic in what you have done to be able to serve others and to be able to give this opportunity to others as well.
Well, this is not about amazing. Me. This is about you. So,
no, I got it, but I'm just telling you.
Before we shut it down fully, I just want you to be able to tell people, how do they find you? Whether it's if they need help in their business, if they need help with themselves, what does that look like?
You can find me on LinkedIn, but I have a website. It's called itsmissioncritical.com.
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 And what's your LinkedIn? Is it just
Michael Grandjean?
Michael Grandjean? Not Mike. Michael Grandjean. Michael Grandjean. We'll put it in the notes, but Michael Grandjean on LinkedIn, and itsmissioncritical.com. Thanks, bro. Appreciate you. Appreciate you so much.
Yep.
Man.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. I appreciate you being with us. If you found value in the show and know a friend or a coworker who could benefit from the conversation, please share the link via text or on social media. Remember, each share creates a ripple effect of knowledge and inspiration. We'll see you next week.
The views, information, or opinions expressed by guests during the Dwayne Kerrigan podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of Dwayne Kerrigan and his affiliates. Dwayne Kerrigan or the Dwayne Kerrigan podcast is not responsible for and does not verify the accuracy of any of the information contained in the podcast series. The primary purpose of this podcast is to educate and inform. Listeners are advised to consult with a qualified professional or specialist before making any decisions based on the content of this podcast.